whisper of the streets. Psalm 23:4. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. I heard the first shot while heading back from the corner store, a faint crack over the rhythmic beat of my sneakers hitting the pavement. By the second, closer and sharper, I froze mid-step, my eyes darting toward the block ahead. I caught the aftermath in fragments, figures scattering like startled pigeons, a body slumping against the chain-link fence, the crimson spray painting the concrete like some grotesque mural. Time distorted, my breath catching in my throat as the world seemed to tilt. I backed into the alley, heart thundering, lungs refusing air. Somewhere inside, I told myself to forget what I just saw, to erase it before it took root. But the image burned itself into my brain like a scar. Sheba, or Shey Shey, as everyone called her, passed me later that evening, her walk brisk, her hoodie drawn tight against the night air. She was carrying groceries in a flimsy bag that barely held its shape, and for a brief second, our eyes met. She saw it, whatever turmoil shadowed my face, but said nothing. Shey Shey was like me in so many ways, caught between the pull of survival and the dream of something more. She glanced toward the end of the block, where the outline of the crime scene still glowed under police spotlights, and muttered without breaking stride, "This place eats us alive." Her words slipped into me like a splinter. I sat on the stoop of my building later, picking at the edges of my fraying sneakers. I kept seeing the man's face, the fear, the shock, and then nothing. My thoughts churned, a storm of guilt, pity, and something unspoken I didn't dare name. I hated that I felt numb. At least fear or disgust would have meant I was still human, but there was nothing in me but cold observation. I thought about my mother scrubbing at dishes until her fingers cracked, Shey Shey hauling groceries through streets that bled violence, and Elijah's steady, judgmental stare. I thought of Jacob twisting the world into a game, daring them all to keep playing. I watched as lights in the neighboring tenement flickered on and off, shadows moving behind tattered curtains. I wondered how many other kids my age sat like this, restless and knotted up in their own choices, on the verge of falling into something they'd never crawl out of. The world outside wasn't just dangerous, it was alive, breathing, always pulling at you. I felt trapped, tangled in its web of expectations and invisible rules. No matter which way I leaned, someone was waiting to remind me that the wrong step could break me completely. Morning came as an indifferent gray smear across the horizon. I hadn't slept. By the time my mother left for work, mumbling something about getting overtime, I felt like a hollow shell. On impulse, I walked over to Shey Shey's building. She sat near the stairwell, one headphone dangling from her ear, chewing on the end of a pen as if she could solve life's riddles with the right turn of thought. She gave me a look, not unkind, not inviting, just acknowledging. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she rasped, her tone edged with dry humor. I didn't respond. That afternoon, a cop in plain clothes stopped me on the street. The officer didn't accuse me of anything directly, just lingered too long, asked too many questions, smiled too wide. It felt more like chess than conversation, each word a piece I needed to navigate carefully. I nodded where I should, shrugged when it made sense, and kept my face blank. Inside, panic clawed at my ribs. Did they know what I'd witnessed? Did they think I was involved? My pulse screamed as the interaction ended, the officer finally wandering off, leaving me soaked in sweat under the autumn sun. By the time night fell, Jacob was back, leaning casually on a parking meter like he owned the world. He beckoned me over, but didn't smile. Jacob never needed to. I approached, half drawn, half repelled. Jacob's hand clasped my shoulder, too firm. "Things are heating up out here. You in or out?" Jacob's voice felt laden with expectation, and my throat tightened. I faltered, mumbling something vague before retreating into the night. The word no hadn't passed my lips, but neither had yes. I could still feel the grip of Jacob's hand hours later, its ghost searing an invisible mark into my skin. Back in my room, I lay in the dark, my legs cramping from tension I couldn't release. I clenched my jaw, squeezing my eyes shut, the crime scene's red stain now knitted with Jacob's smirk and Shey Shey's solemn glance. Elijah's voice echoed faintly in my head, as if rising to judge me again. Each thought spun faster until it all bled together, and I couldn't see the edges anymore. The streets whispered to me outside the window, pulling, prying, promising I'd always belong to them. I pulled the thin blanket tighter across my shoulders, barricading myself from their call. For now, only for now,